Welcome to We Have Notes.
In the shallow, in the shallow. You don't like my singing?
I love your singing.
I love you too.
Stanley has a shockingly good singing voice.
Thank you.
I think this.
No, but like,
oh my gosh, why are you pandering? I think that.
No, I am not pandering. It was like, I always been embarrassed about it. But,
that's not true.
Hey guys, we're back. This is We Have Notes.
This is We Have Notes.
I got it right. Yes.
Yeah.
Whoa, high five.
It's the first time.
I'm so proud of myself. Wait, no. This is We Got Notes. Now correct me.
Oh, it's We Have Notes.
Oh, damn it. Oh, God.
Damn it, Stanley. Not one time have we gotten this correct.
not one time at all.
I feel like we needed to feel it out, but that does still feel right to me. But I'm open to changing it at any moment.
No. We Have Notes is what it is.
We Have Notes. That's what it is.
It has been a crazy last couple of days because I am moving.
Yeah.
And I am moving within the next 4.5 days.
Yes. Your house is just really in the process.
Yeah,
the process is happening.
No, this is how it looks all the time. So this.
No, it's not. This is worse.
Yeah, it's kind of sad.
But yeah, that's so exciting.
But my new place is going to be not shitty.
Not that this place is shitty.
It is not that it's shitty. It's just that there are things that need to be worked on. Like all of the things.
Yeah, by not you.
Yeah.
By someone else.
Yes, like a professional.
By the next person who's hopefully a professional.
That'll be good.
But not you, regardless of who that is.
Did I tell you how Marilyn rage punched the cabinet?
No. Well, maybe. Is it that one? The vertical one? It wasn't a rage punch. I think it was as I recall, it was that cabinet doesn't open very easily. Mm-hmm. And she was trying to jar it with her fist.
That's the truth. But what I like to say is she was looking for the remote control and couldn't find it. And she was like, Rah! So that's what actually happened. That's my truth.
That's slander.
But we're here. We're back for another action-packed episode.
Not in this one.
Yeah, more like
not a lot happens in this.
Depressing, self-reflective, self-deprecating, depressing. Did I say that yet?
Yeah, episode. You did say that. I feel like people are going to turn this off.
No, it's not horrible, guys. It's not horrible.
It's the movie is depressing, but this is going to be fun.
Yeah. I didn't think the movie was depressing, so to speak, like the tone of it.
No.
But
it was not self-aware.
Yeah, what it said to me about myself and other men, and fuck.
And women.
Yeah. Barely any women.
What it said about what men think about women.
Yes.
Was shocking. Now, so I had never seen this movie before.
Really?
But it's a classic. What's our title?
So the classic we're talking about is High Fidelity. So
John Cusack.
John Cusack. Let me go through all the
in the late stages of John Hughes style teen movies. This is like the 20-something version of a John Hughes movie.
Yes, and it was a remake. It was a movie version of the book, like a movie adaptation of the book by Nick Hornby, I thought was a good writer for about 15 minutes.
But yeah, so High Fidelity, I'd never seen it before, but it was one of those movies that I was like, oh, I should really get around to that. And so I'm glad in some senses that I watched it, and like also not glad in other senses.
Yeah. Fun fact for you guys, High Fidelity inspired a collection of essays I wrote called Confessions of a Sucker for Love, where I talked about my experiences in relationships.
I didn't know that.
Yes, I used it when I was doing my research to figure out how I want to write the book. I used High Fidelity, and I also used My Last 5 Girlfriends, which is a UK movie, which is much better than High Fidelity, but has lower ratings.
Huh.
Yeah. I used those two things, and what I loved about High Fidelity back then was the consistent references to music. So
you knew it well.
Yeah.
Before you watched it.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Wow, that must have been very jarring.
But I haven't watched it in 10 years.
Sure.
So that was rough. So pretty much, I'll give you a fast and loose plot. Rob, who owns a record store, where he works with Jack Black and another white dude who I don't recognize anymore.
He looks like Moby.
Yes. Like he looks like Moby
though.
if Moby didn't make it and also was poor and depressed.
Yeah, didn't get vaccines.
Yo, seriously,
he's not vaccinated.
No, fuck that. And like they own this record store where like they care about real music and they're always making like their top list of things, top 5 lists, which I can super relate to. And it's very late 90s, 2000s. You still have cassette tapes. You still have vinyl. You still have CDs. They're making mixtapes.
That's all there is.
Yeah, and like
no one mentions an MP3 in this whole movie.
Yes, and I fucking loved it.
Yeah,
and it was so great, and I love that. And it's still kind of like that 90s grunge era, but it's based in Chicago, which is weird because that didn't seem like the Chicago scene. And
to be clear, like you have to think about the time it takes to make these things. So it came out in 2000, but when it was. I don't know exactly what the timeline was, but yeah, it was probably like a couple years before that it was being made. So the fact that it feels very 90s and hasn't really crossed into like the aughts, I think, and it doesn't grapple at all with 2000 or the millennium or anything like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So Rob gets dumped by his living girlfriend, who moves out of the apartment, and you pretty much go through the movie with Rob trying to figure out why his girlfriend broke up with him, finding out that she's seeing someone else, is really fucking stressed out about the fact that she might be fucking somebody, wants to talk to his old exes to find out what went wrong, finds out that she actually did fuck the other guy, reacts very poorly, and long story less long, at the end of the movie, she gets back with him. And then I think he cheats on her. You are doing this so differently than I would do this.
Oh, sorry. So the reason I wanted to do it that way is like
that's
just give
fine,
a fast and loose, and then we can like talk about it.
You guys, the fans, can tell us if you prefer Meredith's long-winded plot synopses.
I really like your plot synopses.
But you are very efficient.
Oh, thank you. By the way, you look a lot like your sister today. And I know that sounds weird because she is your twin, but I can see the differences. But today, like, you look very much like Amanda.
She's a surgeon, so I look smart. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the initial breakup scene that like kicks the movie off.
Yeah, sorry. So like, go ahead, jump on.
Yeah. So this reminded me of one of my breakups in my 20s that was very like really rocked me, because that's the premise of Rob's list, right? That underpins the movie is these are the 5 breakups that really, really messed him up. Yeah. And I don't have very many of those. I have broken up with a lot of people and been broken up a select few number of times.
The hair flip. Okay, mommy. Okay.
There was one where I'd been dating this guy for a while, and maybe 6 months or something. Yeah. Which is not nothing. And we'd had the like exclusivity conversation. Yeah. And he revealed to me at some point, or like I pried out of him. Yeah. By ascertaining that he was not telling me the truth, that he had been seeing other people this whole time. Whoa. And I was like, all right, so I'm breaking up with you. Like, obviously, right at this moment, because you haven't been honest with me. And he started crying. And it was my house, at least. So we're on my turf. And I was like, I think you should leave. Yeah. And he said to me as, like, I was opening the door for him, I can't believe you're kicking me out like this. But
he was cheating on you.
I guess. Kind of. Like, we weren't... It was very strange. Like, I wasn't invested enough in him to call this cheating, but it was very shocking. Yeah. And I was reminded of that in the moment when Laura starts to leave John Cusack's apartment, and he's like, why don't you just stay for the night? Yeah, and then she's like, no, and he opens the door for her, and he's like, so you're just gonna leave? Yeah. And she's like, yes. And I was like, oh my god, like, why do men do that? And I feel like that was, to me, the question that I kept asking myself throughout this movie. Yes. And I think that's what will be interesting to get into as we get into the actual plot. Yeah. Because I feel annoyed at a lot of the things in this movie, but I also think there's an opportunity to talk about why these kinds of narratives persist that will be really interesting and like will be like we should be empathetic to. And I feel like that's a very generous position.
Yeah, because I'm not feeling that way at all.
But I'm going to make you talk empathetically about it because I'm just such a gracious person.
Yes, you are.
So there we are. We're in the record store. Jack Black, Moby, unvaccinated Moby is there.
So, like, first things first. Well, sorry, let me take a step back.
Yeah.
You asked me, he talks about his top 5 breakups, and then he says that she's not in the top 5. And then he runs to the window and shouts at her like a fucking lunatic.
What does he say?
You didn't make the top 5. You thought this is enough to give me?
He says, if you wanted to really mess me up,
there we go.
You should have gotten to me earlier.
Yes.
Like, I've already been so messed up that you could never possibly mess me up.
Spoiler alert, assholes. She fucked him up.
Yeah, every woman in the whole world was like, okay, buddy, she messed you up. Just wait
till you find out she discovered other
We didn't need to wait. Yeah. We knew. As did Laura.
Oh my god. And then that's when he starts to go through his top 5 of women of worst heartbreaks. And if the first 7 minutes of the movie didn't make me realize, holy fuck, like, what the fuck was I thinking back then? And why did this movie feel so good?
Yeah.
When he starts talking about his breakups,
it felt comforting?
No. I mean, back then it did.
Right. But at the time, it was like, this is how I see it.
Like, I totally get it. But, like, now, I was, like, appalled. So, they're in 7th grade. The girl kisses another guy. He calls her a slut. They're in 7th grade. Spoiler alert, she marries that guy that she was making out with.
Now, let me bring a woman's ears to this, because I wrote this down. And in fact, so what he does in that first 5 minutes of the movie is he actually goes through who the top 5 are.
Yeah.
And you see him, like, in flashbacks, right? So the first one is Allison. We're fewer than 5 minutes in.
Yep.
Here are the words that we have heard about Allison.
Yep.
We were not interested in them, and then we were.
Yeah.
Or we were interested in breasts.
No, we were not interested in them, but then all of a sudden we were, and they grew breasts.
Right, and they grew breasts. We hear her called a slut, as you talk about, and then John Cusack in the present in the movie says the word females.
Yes! Oh, I thought of you when he said that. And
Which I find
Meredith cannot watch this.
To be one of the most troubling things that we do when men talk about women. It's so dehumanizing to talk about people in that way.
They're not German shepherds.
They're not German shepherds. They're not bonobos. They're not, fish. They are women. They're people.
Yeah.
You never hear anyone call someone males.
Yeah, it would be weird. Like, what the fuck are you talking
about? Even women who don't think much of men call them men.
Yeah.
So, like, the least you can possibly do. And I will say, of all the strident positions I take, this is the one I've been most able to convince the most people.
Because it makes the most, it's so easy
Like, at
get.
Parties, I'm so much fun, you guys. Yeah. The minute I hear someone say the word females, I'll stop the whole party, record scratch, and fix it. And I have only gotten positive receptions to that. Yeah. People are like, oh, I didn't think about it like that. It's shocking. Like, people just, you don't think about it. Yeah. So I think that's what happened in this one, too.
Yeah.
They just didn't think about it. So he talks about females in this way that's like, ugh.
Yeah. But, like, I'm going to go through, like, all 5 breakups, even just briefly. But I do want to say, as he was talking about them, I put not a lot of agency for women. And I said, this movie is kind of fucked up. Like, he talks about that girl. Then the girl who he dated in high school, Penny, and he's mad at Penny because she won't go all the way with him. So they're showing a scene where they're kissing and other people are kissing around them, and he's complaining because he's trying to fill her up, and she's saying no. And then he complains and says she's acting as if like this is some kind of like high stakes property that you only can like have a certain level to get access to.
Yeah, he says it's like boobs were stolen property.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And then boobs? Like, dude, you're the grown man.
And then his reaction to that is to do what? Put his hand between her legs, which he describes as going from
asking for change to asking for $50,000 or something like that.
Asking for $1 to asking for $50.
Which is pretty, accurate.
Yes.
Like, but then she was obviously very into him. And then they're showing when she's like, he walked her home and she goes for a kiss and he goes, what's the point? It's not going to go anywhere. And this got more screwed up later on in the movie.
Yeah,
I was just pinned.
It did. But that was really, I had been in those situations. I had been that woman.
Yeah.
And I felt like so bad at that moment.
Yeah.
Because you just feel it viscerally of like, I know what I'm worth to, like, I know what you're here for, and like, I'm not going to give it to you, and I know that I don't matter other than that. Yeah. And I will say that that was a characteristic of my early 20s. Like, I feel lucky that that's not the kind of thing I encountered through most of my dating life, but there was a period of time where it was like, ugh. Like, really, that's all I can offer you? I'm incredibly smart.
That was, like, dude, like, that was,
brutal.
So, sorry, that was a really hard one. Then he talks about the woman who, she was too good looking for him, and too smart for him, and too cool for him.
And who plays this woman?
Catherine
Zeta-Jones.
And also, he said before she shows up on screen, he goes, she's exotic. And then Catherine Zeta-Jones pops up. I noted that, too. And I know, she used to get casted in a bunch of movies because she could pass as Latina. That's literally why. And I was like, this is kind of fucked up. He is just like, he's honest about this one. He's too insecure. He thinks she's cheating on him. She's going to leave him. He is right. He fucking deserved it. And then they had the scene where he's outside her window in the rain. He calls her.
He's so often in the rain.
Yeah.
In this movie.
But as he did that, I put, this is like an incel Reddit, but on the silver screen.
Yeah.
Because it's so much anger.
Cannot take no.
Yeah. And he's screaming at her, and then she shows up in the window, covered in a sheet, and then a guy shows up and was like,
Marco.
Come on. Yeah. I mean, I would have banged Marco, too.
I would have banged Marco. I would have banged John Cusack. You know, it's like nothing personal. But the idea that, like, he has a switch where things are just sex or could be more. Yeah. He, like, doesn't transfer that to any of the women. Like, you can imagine that women would maybe just be having sex with him.
Yeah. And then, oh, man. And he doesn't think about the role that he played to not make it work. Like, he thinks about everything through his lens, but not how he impacted them. Yeah. And he can't think of the women in anything more than shallow terms.
Right. I wrote down with Charlie, who is Catherine Zeta-Jones' character, his first thing is exotic. That's the first adjective he uses. And then he says she's interesting. He says she talks a lot. Yeah. But she says interesting things. She's the first woman that he seems to understand can have interesting thoughts. And then he says, she liked me. At least, I think she did.
Yeah, and it's like, what does
that mean? And then
the
very next thing he says about her is that you're a fucking bitch.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's all fine. Like, I'll see you as a person with depth until you cross me. Yeah. Like, if you're not playing it the way I need you to, then I stop seeing you as a full person. Yeah. With wants and needs of your own.
And then also, it was very obvious why she fucked the other guy, because you were insecure fuck. Sorry. Well, God damn it.
But listen, she could have done that for any number of reasons.
That's true.
But we're 3 into the 5.
Yeah, and then there's the, I forgot her name, but the next one was the woman who he dated after Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Oh, that's the other thing about Catherine Zeta-Jones. He's like, oh, here's where I messed up. Yeah. She's out of my league. Yeah. So imagine Sarah, our next friend, who is cast. Imagine that actress, by the way, like in real life.
I didn't even think about
We're casting you as the person who's in John Cusack's class. Because, like, he's not a beautiful man. Yeah. So she's basically being told, I don't know how much they described in the ad, but her whole role is to be, like, the not that pretty one.
And they dressed her that way, too. It's kind of baggy clothes.
She's, like, punky.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, he says they got together, he and Sarah got together because he was afraid of being alone. And he makes this joke, like, imagine being afraid of being alone at 26. Yep. And I was like, they were 26?
Yeah, right? I'm like, 26 does not look good on them.
No.
Yeah, but I wanted to, so, one of the things that really bothered me during this piece is the way he talks about the women. Yeah. It reminds me of when I was a kid, and I used to collect baseball and basketball cards, and you would read the stats in the back. He was just reading off their stats.
Oh, man.
He wasn't conceptualizing them or act like, he was not at all. It was just like, nice boobs, liked me, new words. And even he was like, you know, I'm smart too. I've read these books and that book.
But I'm not that smart.
Yeah, and it's like, and it was cool though.
He's like, I still like Johnny Cash's autobiography most.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
And like, but that was the guy that I thought I had to be.
Yeah?
Like, that was the guy.
Why? What did you like about him, or what did you see in him that you wanted to emulate? Because
there was certain molds of men that they told you had to be. You had to be the alpha male, the athlete, the nerd, or like the one that doesn't really fit into anything.
The misanthrope.
Yeah, and that was John Cusack, so I thought I had to be that. Be in music and be broody and be all these things.
Yeah, totally.
So he was a perfect example of like, that's what I'm supposed to be like and sound like. And it's just really, man.
So at this point in the movie, after we see the flashback to Sarah.
Yeah.
In real time, remember, he's broken up with Laura.
Yep.
She's moving out in, like, an interminable number of stages.
Yes. Yeah, why did she do that?
I don't know, but John Cusack's mom calls him.
Oh, that conversation was hilarious.
So I'd written down, after Allison, the first girl in 7th grade, he says, all my romantic stories end like this, or something like that. And I was like, that might be you.
That's exactly what I was thinking, too.
So then his mom calls him, and she's like, I knew this would happen.
Yep.
You do this. You move in with a woman, she leaves you.
Yes.
And I was like, And
then, like,
mom's got it.
No one's landing you say that. I felt like no one was landing the plane to say, maybe you suck.
Mom said that. For
you think Mom said that?
Oh, okay. Yes. She definitely said that.
And he
Mom
was like,
got it. He hung up on her.
Because she was talking about marriage, too. And he's like, she doesn't want to marry. She's not that type of girl, Mom.
She starts crying, though, and she's like, you move in with a woman, she leaves you. You move in with a woman, she leaves you. Yep. The other thing I was thinking at this moment is, like, why are these people moving in together so fast?
Yes. A lot of housing insecurity back then, apparently. Because
I guess.
She was a paralegal, Laura was a paralegal. And I forgot what happened to her apartment, but she moved in with John Cusack.
He lost her lease in Lakeview. That's all he says.
Yeah. And like, I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't realize that he lived with Charlie. He is that depiction of a male who's like aggressively average, but that's what you're supposed to look for if you're a beautiful woman. He's aggressively average.
Yeah. Why would you not?
He didn't beat you. He wasn't mean to you, as he says to Laura.
Yes, that's a great point. So that scene is crazy. She's, like, coming to get her stuff. It's, like, the second time, I think. Again, this just goes on and on.
She asked him. She goes. Sorry, I cut you off.
No. So she keeps, like, coming back to get her stuff, and he's like, why do you say this is over?
Yeah.
Like, and I wrote this down. He says, do you still love me? And she says, well, we don't get along.
Yeah.
That's really the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I love you or not, but we don't get along. So, like, this is just over. And then he says, what? Did I beat you? Did I tell you you're a bad person? And I'm like, whoa!
It's like, what is...
That escalated quickly?
Yes.
Not cool.
Yes, man. And then, so, like, the thing that really got to me a lot is, so, when she showed up to get stuff in the apartment, she was at least trying to do it while he was at work. And he kept popping up, uninvited, to make the process more difficult than it needed to be. Mm-hmm. Just like way more difficult than it needed to be. And then, so while this is happening, he's still processing the breakup. He finds out from their mutual friend that she actually has this guy. Wait,
something else happened first. So remember Dick, unvaccinated Moby, invited him, John Cusack, to a show.
Yep.
And they go see the, unvaccinated Moby and Jack Black go to see the show.
Yep.
And John Cusack, when he doesn't get the answer that he wants out of
Laura
goes to the show too. He storms out of the house. Who is performing?
It's not Zoe Kravitz. It's Zoe Kravitz's
Lisa
mom.
Bonet!
Yes, and
who
she
looks exactly like Zoe Kravitz.
Dude, how is she? Is she a vampire?
She looks so amazing and so exactly the same. Yep. And she's up on stage and she's singing. And if you've ever watched Big Little Lies, that scene of Zoe Kravitz singing at the Audrey Hepburn, Elvis Presley fundraiser thing is exactly what this woman looks like. Except for she's on stage at, I think,
like 29 years old?
Maybe, but I think the venue is Arlene's Grocery. She sings, it's amazing. All three of them fall in love with her.
Yes.
John Cusack, unvaccinated Moby and Jack Black.
Who's very angry, by the way, and is screaming because they wouldn't play his stupid mixtape.
So funny.
Yes.
So funny.
So then, like, fast forward. So he sees her that time.
Yeah.
There's obviously some chemistry. Oh, then she comes to the studio.
Yes.
The next... Go ahead.
Before that, there actually is the, like, second black character to speak.
Yes, that's what I had. Yes.
Yeah.
That happened in the first 30 minutes of the movie. I checked.
It's 28:48.
Yes. Yes. High five.
I was like, yes. And
Yeah.
he reads them.
Yes.
He's this record nerd. He's in the store.
Yep.
He's listening to these guys, and he basically just, like, tells them they're ridiculous.
Yeah.
But also in a good, like, I'm a music fan way.
But, like, the way they were talking at first, I thought they had been friends for a long time. And then I realized they've never said his name.
No.
And also, you never see him again.
No.
So, magical musical Negro disappears.
There was definitely a magical element. He does not have a name. And so far, I want to say in all the movies we've seen, we have not had a named black character other than Lisa Bonet.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah. So she had her name.
Which is a very bad record for black characters and representation. But Lisa Bonet was great.
Yeah. I'll call you.
Except
no,
she does... So what happens with Lisa Bonet and...
Oh, they smush.
They do smush.
I didn't disagree with her analysis of, like, just because I'm hurting doesn't mean I can't have sex. Like,
they both just had breakups.
Yeah. But I really appreciated her for being like, yeah, like, this is what it was and nothing else.
Yeah, and he seems to, like, agree with... He seems to be fine with that with her.
Yeah,
it's these other women that he can't, like, understand why they wouldn't want to have lifetime relationships with him. Yeah. Why do you think that is?
Well...
Because she's a musician?
No, not even that. I honestly think it's the energy that she gives off, that free spirit energy. He probably feels like, oh, like, I don't need to. And also, I think he tries to play it off at first, and when she blows it off, like, come on, dude, you know what this is? It takes the pressure off of him. Yeah, but wait, let's go back for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there's a reason that he blames. There's a reason he says that happened. Because while talking to Laura about Ian and whether they had sex yet, she goes, we have not had sex yet. We've slept together, but we haven't made love.
Right.
So when she said that, what that said to me was she's fucked up. They've done it.
Yeah.
But they haven't had one of those the scene from Ghost when they're making clay and then, it hasn't been intense eye contact missionary style sex yet. It's just been like, let's get this, I gotta do the dishes, let's get this through.
Well, so he initially, like, comes to that because Liz, Laura's friend, calls John Cusack and says, like, I don't really care for this Ian guy. I don't want to take sides, and he's like, who's this Ian guy? Figures out it's his old upstairs neighbor. And then he's, like, obsessed with the idea that they've had sex. So he asks Laura point blank. And Laura says, we haven't had sex yet. And then he's obsessed with, what does yet mean?
Yes.
And it's like, you know what yet means.
Exactly. And then he goes and he has sex with Lisa Bonet.
Right.
And then that goes by, and now all of a sudden he's stressed out with the yet part. And then he finds out that, Laura does have sex with Ian.
But he's so obsessed with the idea with all of these women, not just Laura, that, like, someone else was better than him later.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I wrote down, like, is there a part of men who really just views the women they're dating as extensions of themselves?
I want to say extensions of themselves.
Because, like, it's definitely an ego thing.
Yeah.
Like, the idea that someone would move on and be with other people is, like, crippling to John Cusack. So,
you ever played arcade games?
Yeah.
Before? And you know how you play a game, and if you get, like, you score high enough, they'll let you put your name.
Yeah.
So, in the arcade games, you want to try and, like, get your name on that list, but you also want to get the high score. Because the high score means you're the best. I feel like that's the way men look at women and their sexual conquest. If somebody else does it better than me, that means their name is inscribed higher than me.
But do men really believe that anyone would ever tell you honestly? Like, not to say that women are liars, but, like, people just are polite. Yeah. You know, you give people a way out of things. And so I can't imagine, unless there was a really aggressive breakup where people needed to destroy one another, that you would say, like, yeah, and he was better than you. Like, that's just it's hurtful to say that to someone. But women I don't think women think about that.
And then also, I mean, you can have someone who's better sexually than someone, and it's like some very practical ways based on your preferences. Yeah. But I think sex is way too nuanced to just have a you're better because, and that's what really.
He was not asking a question in the nuanced way, though.
But I totally understood him. Yeah. And that need to be better, and that need to be the best, and that insecurity, being mad that she was having sex with somebody else or being obsessed with that. That was me. That's how a lot of guys think.
It seems like it. I mean, someone wrote that screenplay, right? And when he first asked, "Have you slept with Ian?" Yeah. And she was like, "Not yet." It took him 24 hours to realize the yet. Yeah. He went out, like, that's how he went and smashed Lisa Bonet. He went out and he was, like, dancing in the street like Gene Kelly. He was so excited that she hadn't slept with him. And then it wasn't until the next day and he was asking Jack Black, like, what would yet mean to you in this sentence? Oh my God, Jack Black. And Jack Black was like, dude, I'm trying to, like, sort these records. Yeah, it's really let me funny. Do my job. He literally said, I never thought I would say this, but can I go work? Yeah.
But, you know, it's... What ticked me off about this as well is, like, they broke up and he's pissed that she met someone else, but also he lost his stuff when he found out that she had sex with Ian. Yeah. But he had just had sex with Lisa Bonet, and never does he consider that. Then it shows...
And also, he didn't know yet. He just realized the word yet. Yeah. And by the way, this is when Laura sneaks into the top 5. Yes. Because he decides Jackie... whoever that was nothing to him.
Yeah, which is like, thanks.
And so it's like, because he thinks someone else might be better than him in bed. Yep. Then Laura gets in.
Yep. That is number 5 with a bullet, I think he said. Yeah. And it's just, this movie, like, it's just so many things wrong and frustrating with the way. And I know I keep saying that, and I just want to take a second to really unpack that. But I cannot stress to you enough how many men I know think this way about women, how I thought this way about women, how I felt these things, and like the pieces of Cusack's character, John Cusack's character, that gets me is the sense of entitlement, the need to always be right, the need to always make everything about yourself, not being right in front of somebody and not seeing them or seeing the role that you played. That's 1,000%. Anytime I engage with a woman and it didn't work out, I found a way to blame her and then resent her for it. Right. That's half of the process of why you get incels and women hating men, because they're not looking at the role they're playing. And this movie was like a love song.
And by women hating men, you mean men who hate women, like hyphenated women, women hating men. Yes. Yeah. This
movie was a love song to us with all the stuff we thought we were supposed to love, and I'm watching it now with new eyes. And it really scared me how much the movie I could relate to back then. And I'm watching, I'm like, ooh, I totally get this.
Yeah, you know, there's this guy on the internet called Dr. Nerdlove. His name is Harris O'Malley. Oh. And I read his advice column because he's a former, like, pickup artist. Yeah. And so he formats his site so that men searching for that kind of thing will find him. Yeah. And so it's a lot of people writing into him with this kind of concern. And what he comes back to over and over again is this idea that, like, no doesn't mean you're a terrible person who deserves to be, like, bled out in the streets. Yeah. It's just they don't want to have sex with you, just like you look around and there are people that you don't want to have sex with. Yeah. And just that I had actually not conceptualized that either, where I could explain it that way. And I think that shows you how internalized misogyny gets. Yeah. Because it was like, yeah, women can tell you no, like, fuck you. Yeah. I knew that, but I couldn't really articulate that before I started reading him. Yeah. And I think that is something over and over that comes up in the movie, that people saying, like, I just don't want to sleep with you anymore, or I don't want to be with you anymore, was this existential crisis. Yeah. To John Cusack.
It's like complete outrage.
And Rob himself, John Cusack's character, says, like, listen, I'm not so great. Like, I'm a loser, and I'm broke, and all this stuff. But he never quite realizes that could be the way he's coming off as a partner. Yeah. He's just like, I should I deserve love just because I showed up.
And he doesn't change or evolve.
Which Laura says to him.
Yeah.
So in this part of the movie, this is when Liz shows up for the first time.
Yeah.
A mutual friend.
Yep.
Played by Joan Cusack.
Yep.
Sister.
Crazy.
Of John.
Yep.
And she's like, I don't want to pick sides. She reveals Ian's identity yet. Mm-hmm. And essentially sets him off on this whole thing to figure out, like, who is Laura dating? Which he does by stealing mail off the table in the entryway. Apparently the new boyfriend, he didn't open it. I watched for that. He didn't open it. Mm-hmm. He realizes that his ex-girlfriend had started dating their former upstairs neighbor.
Yes.
Played by Tim Robbins.
Yes.
With an epic, like...
ponytail. Was that
white,
a real ponytail?
No, it can't be. That had to have been a wig. Gray streaked, like very old man yogi. Like a yogi, but old. If you can imagine that.
Yeah. And, but then, I like it when she finally finds out what Rob did in the relationship. So she comes to the record store and she's like, fuck you.
You're an asshole.
And storms out.
And you're like, as a viewer, you don't know yet. So you're like, what? And then it shows you the lunch. Do you want to say what happened to Laura?
This is the moment where I wanted to turn the movie off.
It was terrible.
So he's like, it's kind of like a double pan. So it shows him smoking a cigarette. He's talking to you, the viewer, but it is panning to when Laura goes to lunch with Liz. So he goes, Laura probably told Liz a couple of things that happened. And he takes a pull from the cigarette and he goes, like, I cheated on her. And she was pregnant, and that led to her losing the child.
She terminated the pregnancy.
Yes, terminated the pregnancy. And then also that I may have told her that I wasn't happy in a relationship, and I may be looking around. And then...
There's one more thing.
Yep. You want to say it? One more thing?
No, I thought you were moving on.
Oh, no. And then I found out that she terminated the pregnancy, and I may have lost a little bit. I put in my notes, he berated her for having an abortion, and I said he didn't deserve her. Sorry. I had lots of
he borrowed $4,000 from her.
Yes.
So the way it goes down is he, like, this cut screen where it cuts back and forth. You don't hear what John Cusack and Laura are saying to one another.
Yeah.
But John Cusack says, like, she probably told her that I'm a cheater and I cheated on her while she was pregnant. And I asked her for $4,000, which I haven't repaid any of.
Yes.
And I told her I was very unhappy and sort of maybe looking around for someone else. That's a direct quote.
Yes.
And what I thought there is, like, this movie is kind of trying to say the right thing. Because I don't think that you're supposed to totally... Maybe this is a woman's point of view, but I didn't feel like the movie was sugarcoating John Cusack's character.
It wasn't.
Like, Rob was a misanthrope and a dick.
Yeah.
And you were supposed to know that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, it's halfway there.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem to realize the reality that if you're an asshole, people probably aren't going to want to date you. And that's not because they are bitches.
Yeah.
It's because you're not bringing the right things to the table.
Yeah.
So it's like halfway to saying the right thing.
Yeah.
I thought.
Halfway, but it's...
But it sounds like when you first watched it, you were like, you maybe saw it as like, yeah, I totally identify with him. Like maybe I'm being too Pollyannish.
The cheating thing, I was like, well, it happens to the best of us. But if she, the part that really got me, even back then, was the $4,000 piece and the abortion when he berated her. Because it's like...
Yeah, he was like, what about it was my child too.
Yeah, and it's like, she got an abortion because you cheated on her, and she broke down crying when you talked about kids, and you berate her?
And I think that's not something we talk about enough, like how fathers are incorporated in... I do think that is an interesting conversation, but you can't really fault somebody if you're telling them you can't be secure in this relationship and... we're not stable.
Yeah.
Like, for her making her own decision for what she needed to do. That's not the same situation as, like, if you're in a stable relationship and somebody doesn't talk to you about a pregnancy.
Yeah.
She'll still have her reasons, but I think there's room there to talk about, like, we could have both been in this, and, like, let's talk about why that wasn't possible.
Yeah.
But when you are pulling the rug out from under someone, as often as it seems like he was, the only option, seems to me. Like, unless you feel very strongly about being a single mom, is to
go to
make a choice. Yeah. It's tough.
But once I saw that, I did not understand any reason why he or anyone was confused why she was not with him. And I did not understand why Liz was... Even after that, Liz goes on in the movie to like try to give him advice and help him.
Yeah.
And I did not understand that at all.
Yeah, it's true. And before that happens, though, now we're like 45 and so essentially halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
And we just now get to he's going to start hunting for Y. And this is when he goes back to all of his old girlfriends or tries to. And oh no, we've killed Stanley. He goes back to everyone to try to figure out why, in his words, he's just doomed to be abandoned.
Yes.
Again, this is where it only gets halfway. Because, like, if you're bringing this to the table, people are going to not want to be in a relationship with you.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lack of self-reflection that is not allowing him to see this. So he calls up Allison's mom, the girl in 7th grade.
Why would you...
Allison's mom says, no. Allison married her junior high sweetheart.
Yeah.
Which was the other boy on the bench.
Yeah.
And John Cusack basically, quote-unquote, wins that conversation by alerting this mother to the fact that there was a boy before.
Yeah. And it's... Like, what were you trying to prove? And then he feels better about it. Like, I should have done this years ago. Like,
he's pumped.
Like, what are you... Like...
He says, that's okay, it's fate. So this wasn't my fault.
Yes.
And then the next person is Penny, the girl from college, who he tried to feel up and she wouldn't let him and he dumped her because she was not going to put out. And what happens, Stanley?
Sorry.
I'm sorry that sounded so stern. Like,
no. That was like, Stanley? I was just like...
This is your fault.
I watched that scene with my mouth wide open.
Rough.
She was like, I really like you.
So they sit down at a diner.
Yes.
Public place.
Yes. And she's not a real person, obviously, but she is a real person somewhere and has gone through this.
Everyone.
And is a saint. And she said, I really liked you. And when you broke up with me because I wouldn't go all the way with you, I did want to have sex with you, just not when I was 16. So when this other guy came over, I didn't have the energy to tell him no. So it wasn't rape because I guess I said yes. But then after that, I was so messed up, I couldn't have sex again for years. And I couldn't have any sex during college. You're supposed to have sex in college.
I felt that so hard because it is how, like, the whole way that I think women are kind of taught about sex, at least at that stage, like in the 90s, was that men are always going to be trying to get it from you. And you are always having to fight them off until you're married. And then you're supposed to want it. So, like, imagine that mental shift that's required.
Yeah.
But I don't have to because I didn't get married when I was in my 20s. But, you know, she says, like, I didn't have the energy to fight him off. And I felt that so much because you do feel like you've got to be, like, on guard for so much of your life. And then eventually you'll be like, whatever.
Yeah.
And also you're a little bit like, let's get this over with. Like, I don't know. I've been told my whole life that it's either going to get me pregnant or kill me or make me a terrible different person. And, like, maybe that's not going to be the case. So it's a little bit like people, when you first have sex, it's a little bit like, I don't know, especially for women, like, I don't know, let's see. Let's see if it's really as bad as they say it's going to be. And it'll make me a different person and turn me into whatever. So, like, I felt Penny really hard.
You know what made that scene the worst for me?
His reaction?
Yes.
Yeah.
What reaction? He's like, oh, okay. And, like, he, like, has a minute of, like, shockness. But we move on from that moment. That should have been the moment where, like, if this movie were made today, hopefully, he'd stop and really start to think about the role he has played. But nope.
He says, okay, I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
That's a direct quote.
Yep.
And then we cut to Sarah.
Well, I just need a minute. Because, like, that is so fucked.
I know. But he's not interested in anyone else. He just wants to know that it wasn't him.
But it was you. She just said it was you. She said you screwed her up. And, like, not even a hug.
Not screwed her up, though. Like, I think this is a nuanced thing. I don't think that was actually the product of one person. What I'm saying is it's a product of the whole culture that tells you from the time you're very young, like, you have to defend yourself. Yeah. So you'll be 10 and you know you have to defend yourself. Yeah, you're not quite sure against what or against whom, but you know it's on you. Yeah. So when, like, sexual advances start to come up, that kind of defensive thing, and if you recall in the first makeout session, he describes it that way. He's like, defense and retaliation, or like, he has this thing where he's almost talking about, like, war. Yeah. That's how it feels to women too. Yeah. But we're just in the defensive posture. Yeah. And also we're less able to defend ourselves than men are, to like take advantage of things because of like physical strength and safety and stuff like that. Yeah. So I'm sure she was thinking, I didn't have enough energy after you. Yeah. But I don't think she was thinking I didn't have enough energy because of you. Well, although it was definitely implied and translated onto him in a real sense, but it was a whole culture from when she was a kid, telling her like, this will happen to you. So she recognized it when it happened. That's why she was batting his hands away. Yeah. If no one had told her, listen, your whole life you're going to have to defend yourself against men, she would have been caught off guard in those moments. Yeah. And so the fact of running out of energy was his fault, but it also was the fault of culture that tells women, like, you have to be in a defensive crouch until you find your husband, and then you have to be a totally available sexual being. Yep. Which is, if you think about it, an insane thing to ask of anyone.
Absurd. But, you know, like, a greater conversation that we're obviously having on this political podcast. Right. But his impact on her, like... Right. And the lack of acknowledgement of it... Yes. Was just... That is not, like, his reaction is not unnormal. At all.
Not abnormal.
Thank you. It's not abnormal at all.
Yeah.
And that was just like,
right. The idea that it's like, oh, well, it sounds like a personal problem to me. Yeah. I don't have to worry about this. Peace. Like, sounds like the next guy was the bad one. And it's like, no, actually, you tipped the scales. Yeah. And he didn't register that at all.
Yeah, and, like, even, like, who cares who was the bad one? This is someone who's, like, obviously hurting. Yeah. Doesn't even matter. And then that was a larger thing about women in this movie. There are about 5 women in this movie, and they have speaking roles, but like they're not really whole people. The only female characters who have a little more nuance are why am I forgetting her name? Liz.
Lunch friend?
Yes. Liz. Lisa Bonet and Laura. But then Laura doesn't really have reactions. Laura doesn't really have like a fleshed out character. She has adult reactions to John Cusack's very childish behavior.
She's like he projects upon her, and she kind of reacts within that.
And it's so many men in this movie, and it's all testosterone and anger and yelling.
Yeah.
And mansplaining everything. The guy asked for a record for his daughter, and Jack Black mansplains him about how this record is stupid. It's just...
Well, you can't mansplain to another man.
Yes, you're right about that.
But, their whole thing, and that first black character that speaks, that guy who has no name, says to them, magical Negro. You... I'm not going to say that, but, like, magical music. He comes in and says, like, you guys just are putting people off, like, you just want to know more than everyone else, or seem like you know more than everyone else, and they kind of brush him off, and he's like, all right, I gotta go. And... he leaves because he's like, this sucks.
You know what's amazing? Those guys in the record store, they have now evolved and gone onto Twitter to cancel and complain about everything else. Ooh, see?
It's true. That whole idea of being like a connoisseur of something. Yeah. Now it's like, it's just fractured. So you can be a political version of that. Yep. You can be a music version of that. You could be a movie version of that. You could be lots of versions of that guy. Yep. But you're still that guy that's like, excuse me. Yep. Oh my goodness. Which is, you know, it's a real identity for some people. And if you step afoul of like the person who knows the most, they're just gonna like come down your throat, no matter what your intention was or how new you are to a thing or whatever.
But you should know. If you don't know, I'm gonna tell you. Yeah. These guys suck. All right, where are we?
So the next thing is Sarah, the girl who had been his like friends with benefits. Yeah. He goes to meet her, and I think the most we can say there is she is not a fully fledged character. Nope. She talks about the medication she's on and how it's not working, and essentially he's like, dodged a bullet. She's crazy now.
But no, there's a part that, yes, 100%. But there's a part that really bothered me. And just, once again, he's walking out of her apartment. He goes,
right.
I could have had sex tonight.
Yes. And we're supposed to be like, what a good guy?
Yeah, like, yeah.
I guess.
And then she's still there, and he's walking. And I was thinking to myself, because the person doesn't matter. It's about the prize, which is sex.
Yikes, yeah.
And that is depressing. Yeah.
And that's the game he was playing. And so then we get back to Charlie. Catherine Zeta-Jones. He leaves her a message. Some things happen in the middle. Mm-hmm. Which is like Laura comes to get. She has got to get all her stuff out of his apartment.
What is this about now?
And we find out she's moved in with Ian, which I was like, again, how are these people moving in so fast? And he's kind of like begging her to tell him, do we have a chance? She gives him a 9% chance of getting back together.
It's an interesting number, but I respect it because I like to give odd, weird numbers too.
Right. And then he asks her, is it better?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And that is when he goes to see Lisa Bonet.
They get it going.
She looks so much like Zoe Kravitz.
Mm-hmm.
Her mouth, like their mouths just look exactly the same. Their facial expressions. It's amazing.
Yeah. He finds out that Laura had sex with Ian. He goes to that whole scene we talked about already. Shows up in front of Ian's house. Calling, screaming in the rain.
From a payphone. Again, the rain.
Yeah.
Every time he's outside, it's raining.
And this was super stalkery because he looked them up in the Yellow Pages.
How was that ever legal? How was calling information ever legal? He's like, can I have this person's number? And can I also have his address?
Yes. And they were like, here you go.
Oh my gosh.
It was mind-blowing. And then, so then after that, Ian shows up to the record store. I forgot. I remember them showing like 2 scenes of what could have happened, but I don't remember what actually happened.
Oh, yeah. So Ian walks in. John Cusack is furious.
Yep.
And he's like, dude, we gotta just be chill, man.
Yeah.
And it shows you multiple scenes. So one is where he tells him off verbally.
Yep.
One is where he starts to go after him and the other 2 hold him back.
Yeah.
The third one is where they all 3 jump him and smash his head with an air conditioner.
Yes, which is hilarious.
And what really happens is nothing.
Yeah.
Ian comes in, he says his piece, John Cusack says nothing, and then Ian leaves.
Which is, but if it was a woman, John Cusack would have had a lot to say.
Probably.
As he always does.
Probably.
So, that happens. Charlie pops up. I think right before Charlie pops up, Liz says to him,
You've got to stop calling her.
You're making them a unit. And I'm thinking to myself, why are you still helping him after you've heard everything?
This is what you meant about her continuing to give him advice.
Yes. But then she asked him a really good question. Maybe it was another scene she did this. But she goes, why do you actually want to be with her?
I wrote that down too.
He doesn't answer the question. It just goes on to the next scene. With Charlie.
Yes.
And then he's there, and what seems like to me, he's intimidated in the space. He keeps comparing himself to everyone. But somehow Charlie doesn't listen to people and says dumb things. And then he asks Charlie why she slept with somebody else, and she's transparent about it. And he's annoyed by her transparency afterwards.
Yeah, he like, at this dinner party, because he calls her, and she's like, good if we're just friends, because she specifically asked him, are you going to ask me to talk about our past?
Yes.
He says no. She's like, great, then come to the dinner party. He comes to the dinner party. He seems, from his perspective, to quote-unquote see her as she is. Yeah. Which is like, she talks too much, she has too many opinions.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay. And then they're somehow left alone at the end of the night, which I would never have allowed if I was Charlie.
Yeah.
I would have been like, oh, it's time for everyone to go. And he asked her, and she's like, I knew it. And she's like, listen, Marco was just like shinier and sparklier, and I wanted to sleep with him, and I broke up with you.
And he was more confident in himself. And like,
that is when I was like, oh my gosh, that's what this movie is about. Like, you can't hear no.
Yeah.
Like, it's not,
dude,
it's actually not about, it's not about you. Like, she just wanted to do something else.
Yeah.
And that's why I was asking earlier, like, do men just see women as an extension of themselves at a certain level of immaturity?
Yeah.
Because I think women are always primed to see men as people who will always leave them because they just want to. And so the traditional narrative is you've got to always be seducing your man because he could leave you at any second.
It's not about that.
But the idea that women could just leave you too is so astounding.
Yeah, because women, it's like a video game. In Sonic the Hedgehog, if I got 100 rings, I would get an extra life. If I got 100 rings in Sonic the Hedgehog and I didn't get my extra life, I'd be pissed. So he's like, I didn't rape you. I didn't say you were mean.
So
I didn't beat you. Yeah, it's like, why are you can't do this. That's against the rules. So
I only have to not be a total incarceratable shithead.
Exactly. So that's his outrage because he's like, I said I wasn't good enough for her and I was insecure in all these things, but I wasn't atrocious. I was just bad. How dare you say no to me?
Right, I was just kind of boring. I was just more boring.
Yeah.
And not as, like, hot as Marco.
And then when he is atrocious...
But that doesn't seem like a legitimate reason to leave him, when it would totally be a legitimate reason for him to leave a woman.
Because things fizzle out. Yes,
a hotter woman would have been a totally reasonable reason for him to leave Charlie.
Yep.
But not for Charlie to leave him.
No, because he did what he was supposed to do to win the prize.
I would also like to note that her outfit at this dinner party. Do you remember what it looked like?
It was like a white lace thingy.
Yeah, it was like this white... like net coat with flower, like paste on embroidery.
Yeah.
And then a weird stomach band, like around her waist.
I didn't understand that.
And then tight pants.
Yes.
It was kind of amazing.
Yeah. And like, I'm not really understanding none of these things make sense, but it was the late 90s, early 2000s.
It was beautiful, I thought. You couldn't get away with it now, but it like... had leather pants, a lace duster, essentially, with, like, flower appliques.
It's Catherine Zeta-Jones.
I would also like to note...
So she she
looked great.
Yeah.
We're now an hour and 15 minutes into the movie. We get our first Asian character.
Oh,
back at the record store.
Yes.
That's the guy who sees the ad and comes in, and Jack Black and he are going to start a band.
Oh, one quick fact about him. He played Adam, the Black Ranger, in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
What?
He replaced the original Black Ranger. And then he left the show.
That's hilarious.
And then tried to come back in the year 2001 when he found his little morphing cube. But when he tried to morph, it exploded. Yes, I am that deep in the Power Rangers.
I just straight up blacked out when you said that. All I heard was cube. I don't know any of the other words you said. You
need to show some respect to the Power Rangers.
I would if I could, but I literally have an aphasia for what you're saying.
Fair.
So, the Asian character, Jack Black's going to get into a band. Laura, ... I wrote in my notes, comes back. Interesting, John Cusack says to Laura, you keep showing up here. Why has she still got a key?
Yes.
And she's reading a list of his top 5 dream jobs.
Yes.
Which she basically boils down for him as like, you would hate doing all of these things. You're doing the thing that you like.
Yes.
You're owning a record store. You would like that. Then she leaves.
And then the end. All right, it's going to be over now. For real, this is when he starts to self-reflect. No, her dad dies.
Yeah.
And then she asks him to come to the funeral, but like not really. She's just like, my mom wants you here, but I'm not going to hold your hand. He shows up, tries to start an argument with Liz at the funeral.
Yeah.
When they were talking about...
He's like, what do you want me to do? Keep apologizing? And Liz goes, in classic Liz fashion, just the once would do.
Yeah. Yeah, Liz...
Oof.
Listen, she knows her brother. And then he apologizes to her and then walks out in the rain. Again.
In the rain.
Again.
Now, can I confess something to you at this
Please
point?
Do.
There's another John Cusack movie where he holds up a boombox.
Say anything.
Now, I didn't know these were different movies. I remember it being in the rain, which I now know is not the case. The holding up in the boombox. So every time he walked out in the rain, I was like, now's going to be the boombox. It was a music movie.
Yes.
I mean, I could be forgiven for thinking
you can very much be forgiven,
that this would be the boombox movie, but it was not the boombox movie.
And he was also 20 years younger in that movie.
Really?
I remember that. Yeah, I was an 80s movie.
I'm
and
sorry,
it was a crappy
everyone.
song, too.
Was it Peter Frampton?
I don't remember.
Now, we have to do this fact check because do you remember when he first went to see Lisa Bonet, he walked up to the thing and he was like, is that Peter Frampton? So if it was Peter Frampton, that would be a really funny callback.
That'd be a nice callback.
All right. Anyway, we'll get back off of my not knowing what this movie was.
So then Laura comes to him and brings him in the car. And a moment, which I've never been through personally, but I can understand, that, like, she's going through this grief. She just wants to feel something else. So she has sex with him.
Now, they're in the car. It's raining cats and dogs outside. He'd been sitting in the cold rain waiting for the bus when she picked him up. Mm-hmm. If you can get a boner in this moment, you are a psychopath.
And also, when she said, it's either we have sex or I put my hand in a fire or stab myself with a cigarette butt. I could not. How did he hear that and go, I'm hard? Like,
yeah, she just gets on top of him. She's like, don't move. And I was like, I don't have a penis, but that seems like it would be a perfect moment for that to not work.
I would not, like, But
they apparently have sex in the car.
What does that say about him? I can understand where she was
Well, we know
from.
He's incredibly self-centered.
How kind of him to... That was
he was able to just be like, time to go. I don't know. It's crazy. But then, so they get back together.
Yes.
In a very ambivalent way.
Yes.
She's like, I guess I'm not sure where it's going to go, but I don't want to stay with my mom.
And Ian's horrible.
So she moves back in all at once this time.
Yep.
It even says that.
And it's going well.
And then he meets...
I forgot her name.
Caroline.
She's from Dawson's Creek.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't watch Dawson's
Creek. She played...
I wasn't allowed.
Michelle Williams.
No. Caroline, the columnist.
Yeah, she's played by Michelle Williams.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's Michelle Williams.
Are you sure?
I'm 70% sure. Let's check the Wikipedia.
All right, we'll check.
I'll check Wikipedia. You keep talking.
Okay, so Caroline comes to the record store. She's a music columnist for the Daily Reader, which is an alt-weekly in Chicago, that I believe exists to this day, but its days are almost certainly numbered. And he agrees to be interviewed by her because there is a show that's going to be put on. Jack Black's band, and also this little shitty skater band that John Cusack... It's so, like... Yep. Silly that we didn't even get into it, but he basically signs these two skater kids to his own label.
That he just made up at that moment.
And it's called Top 5 Records because he's so obsessed with making lists.
It's not Michelle Williams, by the way. It is Natasha Gregson Wagner.
Yeah.
So that's my bad.
Definitely not Michelle Williams.
But she looked like Michelle Williams.
No, she doesn't.
Okay, so maybe I was projecting because I love Michelle
Williams. I know. All white people look the same. I watch Jesus and Meryl. I know. So he sort of entertains this because Laura has put it together. Yes. She's like super proud of him. Caroline gets wind of it. She's going to write a column about it. And he goes to make Caroline a mixtape, which, as we all know, through the 80s and 90s was the way you tell someone you're in love with them.
And he even starts to break it down.
Yes.
And like that's a very intimate thing to make someone a mixtape.
Yes. Laura is not happy. But they sort of, like, go on. He puts her off. And then there's the drinking lunch. Do you remember what happens at the drinking lunch?
No. Wait. No.
He proposes to her. He says... So they're meeting for lunch. Remember, Laura is a professional woman, a paralegal.
Makes 70, 80 grand a year.
Gotta be.
Got her law degree, but is a paralegal, which is strange, but whatever.
She walks into the bar. He's already drinking a beer. She's like, oh... a drinking lunch on a school day. And he's like, essentially, would you ever consider marrying me? She laughs at him.
Correct, Laura.
Correct. And she's basically like, listen, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, isn't this okay? Like, can we just keep this going? So John Cusack.
And he doesn't like that stuff.
And
wait, do you have terrible in all caps on your book?
Yes, I do. So... when she doesn't react in the way that it's clear that he expected her to react, he starts explaining himself. And what he says is, I realize that all these women that I keep like expecting to be better than you, they're just fantasies.
Yeah.
And I realize they're never going to come true. So like women, does that warm the cockles of your heart to hear that from your man? No. It's like, I realize like, you're what I've got, and so I'm gonna keep you. Which in some ways is how love is.
And like he said in other parts of the movie, and like you're right, that is how love is in a way.
Yeah. You got to make a choice at some point, or else you could just always be. But he says there are never any surprises, and she says it just doesn't deliver. Like, she finishes that sentence, and he's like, yeah, it never really delivers, and you feel that she's like, you never really, like, he's talking about quote-unquote fantasies of other women. Mm-hmm. She's talking about him.
Yep.
So then you cut to the club, where this party is going to go on for the album release. And that's where I have terrible, in all caps, in two lines tall. Yes. Because it's the first song off of the EP that they've released.
Oh, yeah.
And it's garbage.
Yeah, that whole, the whole time. And I was like, this is what grungy white people were listening to after Nirvana was
I think it was meant to be bad. Like, even grungy white people would recognize it was bad.
Yeah.
But he's DJing again, which is like, he's
he like doing.
Yeah, and that's talking about Laura, and that's clearly when he felt the most virile.
But he also DJed so he can get girls, remember?
Which he said explicitly. So then Laura takes him aside.
Yes.
And Jack Black gets up to sing. And they're kind of like, oh no, like they're going to sing something crazy.
Well, they're good.
But he sings Let's Get It On.
Yeah.
Which has been established as their song.
Yep.
And Jack Black's voice is so good.
He's in the band for real, right?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Well, he's in, what's their band called?
The Fighting Robots or something like that?
No. It's not the Fighting Robots.
Let's see. Let's go to Jack Black. He's on here. Jack Black, hurry up, let the thing pop up. We will tell you what band Jack Black is in a second. If you finish the story, I'll get Jack Black's band. I feel like there's a part we're missing where he asked, like, why are you taking me back to begin with? And she was like, because you apologized for the first time. And she was referencing when he apologized at the funeral. But it was like, he was apologizing about your dad being dead, but it wasn't really a good apology. Right.
Well, it was ambiguous.
Yeah.
You couldn't really tell.
And it's like, you were looking for a reason to take him back at that point, in my opinion.
But also, I think when you're so starved for humility,
yes,
you can see it anywhere. So he might have meant, I'm sorry your dad's dead, but if it's the first time your stupid boyfriend has ever said the words to you, you can, like, apply it to a lot of different things.
And then also for him, why would you want to get back with her when her dad just died? This is very clearly a temporary thing. She's going through trauma, so she's going to all the things that are familiar and safe.
Yeah.
You have not changed in 30 plus years.
Don't you feel like that's one of the things the movie was saying to the viewer that the characters didn't really know, or that John Cusack didn't really know, at least? Because it's so closely aligned, and a lot of time he's breaking the fourth wall and talking straight to you.
Yeah.
But I did feel like there were some moments where the movie was self-aware.
Yeah.
And was saying, like, this is one of those moments, like, he should know that she's not...
Yeah.
Like, now she's the one who's not stable enough to be giving him affection, but they end up together.
Yes, which is crazy. But, like the part when he talked about Ian being the upstairs neighbor and Ian's having sex, and he's like, is he ever going to stop? And she was like, I could be so lucky.
Yeah.
And, like, we know.
But then they laugh.
Yes.
But we know that it's going to rip him up later. So that was a totally innocuous moment from her perspective.
Yeah, but, like, also, like, she was shading you, Rob. She was saying, I'm tired of this 2-minute whatever you're giving me. And he could not pick up on that.
Or at the time, he thought, like, oh, it's a joke. But then when she was gone, all of a sudden now it's like, oh.
Yeah, it's like, oh,
maybe she really meant that.
And that imagined sex scene between her and Ian that was just
hilarious.
Absurd.
Tim Robbins in this crazy wig was one of the highlights of this movie.
I will fight that it was not a wig. I will die on that.
Okay.
I'll probably lose, but I will die on that.
How are we going to figure that out?
Let us, they're probably...
and did we figure out what the...
Oh, my internet's acting up.
It's Tenacious D.
Oh, how did you figure that out?
I just remembered it in my mind.
You have a brilliant memory.
I knew it had a D. I knew it had a D in it. Yeah. Tenacious D. It's a comedy rock band.
I am a child.
They have that crazy song that's like, this is just a tribute. You've gotta believe.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you wish you were there.
I love Jack Black. He's so cool.
It's so good.
His character, not so much in this movie. So my internet is acting up, but guess how much they grossed?
$67 million.
Lower.
$50 million.
Lower, slightly.
$30 million.
Higher. That's how much the budget
$40 million.
Was. The budget was $30 million.
Okay.
They grossed $47 million.
Okay, so like flop.
Yeah.
Was that a flop then? I don't know anymore.
That is a flop. They only made about $17 million. So
profit.
Yeah, but...
And it's super a cult classic.
But when you spend $30 million...
You want to make...
Yeah, you want to
at least double.
Yeah, that's not really...
Charlie's Angels made triple.
Yeah. But, like, just to close this movie out and this conversation, they should really do another High Fidelity. And I would hope they do it on, like, with hip-hop. And I hope that they readdress a lot of the problematic ways that men talked about women. Because I think men could use movies and pieces like High Fidelity minus all the crazy shit. I think it really is important.
Yeah.
Because I understand why I was drawn to High Fidelity. I was looking for things that showed men going through breakups and how to deal with it. Because there was nowhere I could go.
Well, yeah, it was like halfway there for a lot of the movie. Like you'd kind of get to the point, and then just there wasn't enough commitment. And I think probably the blind spot of having an all-male director and writer and whatever. Although the music supervisor was a woman.
Oh,
I thought that was interesting because it's so like music heavy, and it's so kind of like white men telling other people they're not as good as music. I was like, Kathy. But I think that there was that blind spot of, and probably in the book too. I mean, Nick Hornby was a white dude.
Yeah.
And there just wasn't quite that tipping point of like, you feel aggrieved, but can you remember that there are other people on the other side of this equation that also feel aggrieved?
Yeah.
Or also have like opinions on this.
Yeah. And
deal with that.
Yeah.
And I think it would be interesting too to have a series of short films from the perspectives of these 5 women that he goes through in the movie. Yeah.
And like, that'd be really interesting, actually. And so I'm really thinking deep about Nick Hornby. Yeah. You know, I was really thinking about the whole process for this movie because when I was writing Sucker for Love, I was going to bookstores and libraries and I go like, what are some books that talk about like a male's perspective on relationships and heartbreak? And they kept referencing Nick Hornby.
Yeah, sure.
Or Nicholas Sparks, which was weird. Huh. So I have like 1.5.
They were just thinking male authors.
Yeah.
Because in the romance space or in the like relationship space, there aren't that many.
There really aren't.
Yeah.
So there's a space needed for that, and I think we're getting more spaces like that. You talking about like Dr. Lovegood? You said Feelgood?
Dr. Nerdlove.
Dr. Nerdlove. That was way
Harris O'Malley.
I've read one of his articles.
He's great.
Yeah, he's really good.
He keeps an advice column, which is one of my addictions, is reading advice columns in general. He specifically crafts the titles of his articles for the SEO. So you know if someone's Googling, like, how to get a girl to sleep with me, like, they find him. That's good. And the more traffic his website gets, the more people will find him, because that's how search engines work. Yeah. But you can tell they were ending up in, like, Reddit.
Yeah. That's good.
Sorry. So
No. That's good. We need more Dr. Nerdloves.
Yeah.
We need more fleshed out, developed stories. We need a High Fidelity from a woman's perspective, reflecting on her last 5 relationships.
Or even one that did, like, if we had High Fidelity plus 500 Days of Summer.
I haven't seen that
but one. Directed by a woman. So that's like the origin of the Manic Pixie Dream Girl. Have you ever heard of this? So, well, look it up, everyone. It's like a trope now. But basically, Joseph Gordon-Levitt meets Zooey Deschanel, and she's kind of like, oh my god, like she's just really free-spirited and whatever, and she like breaks him out of his funk.
That's definitely Zooey Deschanel.
And then she tells him over and over again, like, I'm not going to be your girlfriend. Yeah. I'm moving or whatever. I can't remember what happens in the movie. And then when she does leave at the end of the movie, he's like shocked. Yeah. So if it was like plus those 2 things, with a woman directing it, where you could have that perspective of like, she has humanity too. She's not just here to entertain you. Yes. That kind of thing. Because I think it takes a long time for guys to grow up and realize that all the thoughts and feelings and emotions they're having, the other person is having too. Yeah. They're not just like there. Like, do you think that's accurate?
I think so. Yeah. I really think so. So I have more thoughts about this. I'm going to write about this now, actually. Yeah? Because it's inspired me. But I think that's a big piece right there. The humanity, understanding that you're not entitled to shit. Right. So, yeah. Yeah. All right. I think we got through another episode.
That's right.
What would you rank this on a scale of 1 to 10?
A 2.
I give it 3.
Yeah?
Yeah, music, mixtapes, like that whole
The
vibe.
acting was great.
Yeah, great. Oh, yeah, acting was great.
The acting was great. I think the writing was pretty good. I just, couldn't get behind where it came out.
Yeah.
But the writing was good. It's clearly Nick Hornby.
This movie used to be a 10 for me.
Yeah?
Yeah. So watching it again, it really was upsetting to watch.
What a difference a few years makes, right?
Yeah, man. Holy shit. It was really upsetting to watch this
People used to say wisdom is wasted, or youth is wasted
on
the young. And I was like, nah. But now that I'm in my 30s, I'm like, yeah, it totally is.
Yeah. Holy shit. We need another version of this for the youth, so they don't do dumb shit and don't think dumb shit like I did.
Yeah. Well, I think that's happening in a lot of ways. Yeah. I mean, different people getting involved in the movie making scene, but
Springer's nuts for that.
Ugh.
All right, dude. So we did it.
We had the notes. Spoiler alert.
Even though it was 20 years ago, asshole. Right?
Jerks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.